Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Ashley and Natasha show. Just kidding. GovConHacks Live. Ashley Toole here, joined by Natasha Velez. How is everyone this evening?
Hey guys.
So we are excited. We're going to talk about the common mistakes made on capability statements. A lot of industry kind of looks at this like a checkbox thing, oh, I need a capability statement. I have a capability statement and I'm done. So we're going to kind of dig into the horror stories that we've come across over the years and hope that you guys are joining us on YouTube. Feel free to join the conversation and jump in the comments.
Absolutely.
So I recently did a course for Govology on developing a compelling capability statement. And what I learned from that course, especially, the feedback from the audience, is how much just lack of information there is, not necessarily about capability statements, but about how to meet federal expectations with them and
Mm.
how to sell through them and with them. So, what's your favorite? What's that one mistake that's like nails on a chalkboard when you see a capability statement?
I am an EDWSB, WOSB, SBA company.
DBE.
All the E's, every single acronym you could come with. The sale point is my certifications, not my value or what I bring to the table. So yeah, that's cringy.
That's definitely a good example. And I gotta say, basically, guys, when you're leading with your set asides, I'm talking about for context, let's look at your corporate overview or capability narrative right there at the top. When you start that off with, I'm a woman-owned small business, I'm a veteran-owned small business, we are a DBE certified. Look, guys, you're telling the government that you think your value is in either your geographical, your minority or your disadvantaged status, your veteran status, your woman status. That's not true, right? Because you provide solutions and your value is in the solutions that you're providing to the government, the problems that you're solving. So lead with that because certifications have its own place on your capability statement. And if you are certified, please use the logos, make it visually apparent. You don't need to waste precious real estate in every section talking about your certifications. Talk
That's
about what you're good at.
That's a good point. I
Yeah.
like those. I think visualization is key because, you just think of it this way. This is your company's resume. So these people see a million of these a day. They want to get to the point, like what's your past performance, core capabilities, and what's your set of size? Who are you? Right? Like quick 5-second scan. What can you see
Right.
easier than verbiage? Images. So graphics are everything. So if you can put logos, even logos for your past performance versus like titling all the business you've done previously, it's key. It's key. It's going to stand out.
Yes. And I will say, while we're on the topic of logos, I see some of the old school templates that are out there, particularly the Word documents. I hope nobody's still using Word, but we'll save that for later. Um, Still have just like the government agency logos with no context. So if you come across a template like that, think twice. You're not allowed to use an agency logo unless you're providing context with it, right? So, and this is sort of one of those taboo topics because, some of your Apex counselors will point to the .gov website that says, don't use our logos. But if you actually talk to a human buyer, they'll tell you that as long as it's very clear that you did business with that agency and what you provided, they actually appreciate you using those visuals because that draws their attention specifically. Oh, they've worked with the government before. So for those of you that do have government past performance, even as a subcontractor, as long as you're providing context, use the logos. And back to what Natasha said, 6 seconds. That's all you have. You have
Mhm.
6 seconds to get someone's attention in the government space. Don't waste it with a bunch of heavy paragraphs. Give them
Yeah.
bullet points. Why should they buy the cow if you're going to give the milk away for free, right? What do you have to talk about in the meeting if you're giving it all right there in the capability statement? So you got to leave something left to be discussed, right? Plant enough seeds to get them interested, and have a firm call to action, which
Yeah,
might be, are you available next week for a capability briefing?
which we can go into that
One
later in class.
Yeah, we'll go into why you guys never get responses from your government emails later. Maybe we'll talk about that in not
Good.
next week, but the week after.
I think my other
Yeah,
thing
that's definitely a good one.
with another thing with capabilities, I would say that kind of is really hard for me. When I see a lack of focus. I think we're in this concept where everybody just wants to do everything, which means you can't do anything, right? Like you're like a master of everything, you're really a master of nothing, right? You can't have quality for every single thing in the world. So because you don't have like a center focus and you just listing off tons of core capabilities that don't really intertwine or relate to each other in any way, it almost shows like disorganization, and it doesn't really tailor it to the customer that you're trying to reach. I would suggest in the regard, like I will respect the fact that there are some companies that do have multiple niches, and that's fine. But then you create a capability statement tailored to each niche, to each client, because there has to be customization for each, agency. Janitorial is obviously completely different from asset management versus, software development. You can't There's no way you can really illustrate that in one capability statement without it looking too busy.
Right. And not only that, but the people that buy facilities management don't really give a crap about anything but facilities management. So all of your effort is sort of lost upon deaf ears, right? So if you do have, one leg in facilities management and another leg in real estate or whatever the comparison might be, segment your capability statements at least to speak to, what you're doing in that industry. Because if you come up with a capability statement, and believe it or not, I came across a profile today that had over 50 NAICS codes on it. Don't waste the space, guys. Like nobody, if somebody comes across you and sees like 50 NAICS, everything from bridge construction to like, church, your church too,
Mhm.
nobody's going to really take you that seriously. You're really killing the market research phase of the procurement cycle, because that's how you kind of put your hat in the ring, is how you list yourself. And the first step to the procurement process after a need has been determined is market research. So be found when they're looking and present yourself professionally. And it doesn't matter really if you're big or small. I mean, in some industries it will. Um, but if you're putting your best foot forward and you look like you're an expert in something, you're going to have immediately a reduced element of risk when someone's looking at doing business with your company. And this goes both ways. Primes use DSBS too to find subs. So the same content that you're developing for your capability statement should be also mimicked on your DSBS profile, on your website, et cetera, your LinkedIn business page. But back to common capability statement mistakes. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I know that there are templates out there that do this, but they're kind of outdated. So I'm gonna argue here. Do not put capability statement real big across the top of your page, drowning out your branding. That
Oh,
is a waste of space. Like, you got to understand, guys, these buyers, they're 1102s. They've gone through acquisition training. And if you've ever sat in front of a DAU, I will promise you it is not for the faint of heart. They're not idiots. The government knows if this document contains your core competencies, your differentiators, your cage code, your UEI, it's a capability statement. Use that space to tell them something else, like your ISO certifications, using logos for non-federal certifications. There's a million and one things that you can use that's adding value to your capability statement other than the words capability statement.
yeah, I think what's common about it is that most people don't. most people that are starting that have a capability statement don't have any past performance. And a lot of them are, let's be real, not businesses, not essentially with any past performance in the commercial world or the federal world. So they're not really sure what to put in there. So they kind of like, they go with the big verbiage to try to cover as much space because they don't have a lot to add to it, not any added value essentially. But you can kind of turn that around to be, if you don't have that past value, you can put in what that vision looks like. If who do you want to be? And essentially, like that mentality of I am who I think I am, right? So put everything that you intend for your company to be in that portion and utilize it to your advantage. But don't cover it with the bold capabilities and all the photos of, different nicks and things like that, because it kind of just says to me that you don't have anything to offer. You don't have any past performance, you don't have anything in there. And you're just trying to kind of fill it up with pictures and verbiage that kind of irrelevant or just,
Relevant, right?
we already know.
And if you're using your capability statement to market your business, and not every industry is going to require, marketing. Like I know some companies that are very successful who have never intentionally marketed their company. Now, that's not the norm, that's usually the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Those of you in IT services that might be joining us, I mean, marketing is your friend. Same as in the commercial space, you can't execute your sales process, especially in a space that 9 out of every $10 is spent through a vehicle, without marketing and demonstrating and communicating your value to your prospect. And essentially, that's what the government is your prospect, right? You want to target your end users. If you're in IT services specifically trying to solve a pain point with either an integration, automation, a new software development, there is a lot of room for that. But how can you really develop a solution if you don't know what the pain points are? So you have to get that meeting somehow, some way, right? And that's typically where your capability statement comes in. When well written, will land you meetings, pitch days, capability briefings. Will immediately tell a prime contractor what synergies lie, between your companies, to encourage them to respond to that email. So I know there's a lot of like these Fiverr people that say they do cheap capability statements and all that, but anyone can do that for free in Canva. The value
You're
behind your
quite
capability
wrong.
statement, right, is you're communicating a value.
Yeah.
And, your design is important, but, the design is nothing if you're everywhere with your statement and you're not speaking to your prospect.
Ooh, and go back to that whole point of well written. I think that's the next pet peeve. Well written. Do not neglect proofreading, folks. You will not believe the amount of capability statements I get that have so many misspellings.
Misspellings.
Like the
Grammarly is
formatting,
free.
the
Run that
formatting,
baby through Grammarly.
everything.
Yes.
It's really, really bad sometimes. And I'm like, you sent this to someone. You're crazy. If it's not quality, when I first meet you, in those 5 seconds, 5 to 6 seconds that I'm looking at your capability statement, if it's not quality, how am I to be reassured that all of your work does not showcase the same quality as the mere capability statement you provided me? So it has to be consistent quality in your briefing, your capability statement, and in your work, start to finish. So, this is your resume. If you were applying to a job, and I was reading your resume, I would want to see all the context that is relevant to the position that you're applying for. I want to see consistency, that you're kind of, constantly doing work in that particular field, because that shows determination and quality and professionalism and experience. And it provides some sort of, I feel positive about this engagement and that you can get the work done efficiently. Um, And then, ultimately, if you have it and it's in good context, good formatting, then I know that you have the capabilities of showing quality work because essentially all the work you provide most times will require documentation or some sort of progress report or some sort of invoicing. So
papers.
I want to know that you can do the work. If you can't do this, I don't know if you can do that. I
Right.
would,
And a lot of times, creating your micro offer
Mhm.
as your sort of first experience with an agency is a great way to get more business with that agency. So a lot of times capability statement is how we do that. But let's take a different scenario for a second. Let's say you attend a conference. We just attended SAM the other day, and I didn't take my capability statement with me. And the reason I didn't take my capability statement with me is because I intended to tailor my capability statement to the conversations I had at the conference on the follow up, right? So I handed out my business cards, all of my contact information is there. But on their business cards, I took my notes on what we talked about. I went and I tailored a version that spoke specifically to that conversation and what that prospect was interested in as part of my business. And I'm delivering a custom tailored capability statement to them. Now I'm setting myself apart from the competitors, right? So there's more than one way to use this particular piece, this document. Well, I should say this marketing slick that you'll create.
yeah, I would
And
agree.
there are longer versions. You've got capability brief, which is typically requested of you after there's been a meeting and before there's an opportunity. So somewhere in that BD phase, you'll be maybe requested to provide a capability brief. Those can get 5, 7. I've seen some as long as 20 pages, but it's a more in-depth um, picture of your services. Your capability statement, 1 page, guys, 1 page, not 6, not 8, 1.
You don't want it too
Maximum
long and
of
you don't want
2.
it, right? Like, no, not too
Right.
long, not too short, not too much, not too little, like just right.
Just right. Just right.
What
Um,
happens to the
but
ones
typically
that have like too much verbiage?
they
You
don't
ever
get
see
read. Who has
there?
what CO do you know, or even a small business liaison officer that has time to read all of that? I mean, thinking about what their responsibilities are in their day to day,
Yeah.
I want to get to the point quickly and I want to get the meeting.
Mhm.
We'll just
You can
keep
tell
it
me
brief,
everything.
bullet points, right?
Yeah.
And I will say well, not maybe not lastly, but another very important one not to be forgotten will be your differentiators, guys. Don't
Oh,
omit them.
oh yeah,
They're
you're right.
expected of you. What makes you different than your competitors? Sometimes these take a little time. They're not always apparent, especially if you don't even know who your competitors are yet.
Yes. And don't
So,
be
you
generic.
know,
Think about it. Don't I give great service? We hope so.
yeah,
Affordable, okay? Maybe try something else.
unless you're doubling your price, but that's another one for another day.
Right.
Um, yeah, make claims here that not everybody else can make.
Yes.
Excellent customer service is not a differentiator.
Not.
Everyone can say that, right? What might be a differentiator if we're staying on the customer service path could be 24/7 customer service. If you're in an industry that's not very typical, heck yeah, that's a differentiator. I'd use it.
Mhm. Or different software that you utilize that your competitors don't utilize that'll make you more efficient. There are many ways to make yourself stand out that's not the same old comments that I hear in differentiators over and over again. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
ChatGPT is not the move for differentiators, guys. And it doesn't have the ability to be
Telling
human.
everyone the
It
same
doesn't
thing.
it doesn't know your customers. It doesn't know your industry. Differentiators is not something that ChatGPT will work for. They often confuse differentiators with core competencies.
Yeah.
So keep in mind there is a level of sales that's involved in the content that makes the capability statement more than just a checkbox, right?
Yeah, and
I think
and it
that's what
goes
the
back to
primary.
that conversation that we've had previously. I think at one point we kind of talked, I think when we were talking about business development, but you're salespeople now. Congratulations. They're all salespeople. You own a
Absolutely.
business
Yeah.
and your business is your sale and you have to make sales so you can gain revenue. And marketing is going to be something that you're going to have to learn. Not everyone can do it for you. No one is going to know your business better than you do or care about it as much as you do. So you have to take the initiative to learn, educate yourself, and make sure that you stand outside of the competition so that you can be seen. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions around every time I repeat this course. People are always asking, well, how do I leverage my professional experience? And guys, we all have to start somewhere. The whole government, like the small business program was put into place to help small businesses grow their business, right? They know that you're starting somewhere. In a lot of industries, they would prefer that you've had a customer, outside of government first, especially if you're doing IT services, if you're doing cybersecurity and such. And not every industry is past performance with the federal government demanded in opportunities. So whether the government already knows they need it or whether you convince them they need it, that's the only thing that it takes to start the contracting process.
Yeah.
So, are y'all going to sit and wait on Sam for that perfect opportunity? Or are you going to get proactive and start selling? Because I don't know about you, but I like to influence opportunities in my favor, not go after something and waste my time that was written for someone else with a 3-day turnaround. Like, I
Yep.
mean, and I know that there's content out there probably telling you differently. Hey, to each their own. Um, there's a difference between getting lucky here and there and building a long-term sustainable strategy. And if
Right.
you're not marketing, those short-term wins might carry you for a while, but there's certainly not going to be generational wealth accumulating opportunities, playing in that space. So
You definitely have to be strategic, have yourself a pipeline, but also consider the fact that you have to do some pre-acquisitions. You have to do a lot of networking. You have to do a lot of partnering. You have to get out there and you have to sell yourself and your core capabilities. And then, let's be real, when you win, you have to perform and do a great job because that right there is the sale itself. If you do a great job, you get a good CPAR ratings, come, federal agencies will want to do more business with you because they know that you've done good work. And you can also, there's always room to keep building within the agency that you're already winning with. So it
yes.
all really is a strategic solution to get you from where you start with nothing to, the millions of dollars that you see people winning. And the way they keep those millions to billions of dollars is by having a strategy. And they know their clients, they know their customers. They're not just a contracting name on sam.gov that they email when the bid is due. They're someone that they repetitively meet and have conversations with and do, industry days with. They have a relationship with them. So there is a difference.
I mean,
Absolutely.
there's a whole process. Every agency operates differently.
Hmm.
And, if you're not registered in their internal database, like you're not getting invited into the inner circle. You're not getting a seat at the table. You're not putting your hat in the ring. Sitting
Nope.
around on SAM with hundreds of thousands of others is all well and good, but that's not really where the money's going to come from. And that's why a capability statement is really so important because it's often the first impression that your potential buyer gets of your company.
Hmm.
So, this isn't very much different than sales 101, right? And, typically before, and this is true prior to COVID, before you get a government contract, you had commercial customers typically,
Yes.
and government contracting was the next logical step to retain the long-term revenue stream and sort of guaranteed money. And we've kind of gotten a little bit away from that. And I know it's difficult for some new folks that are coming in. They're saying they're seeing all these past performance requirements, and they're like, "Well, this is what I do. This is what I know. How do I use this to make it to that?" And that's where your capability statement is key because you have to communicate your value somehow, right? So even if what you're relying on is professional experience, we actually have a group member who he has 20 years experience in oil and gas industry, and he just won his first contract. It was a 5-year BPA for the bottles, like that the gases are stored in. And it was
Hmm.
very easy for him because he understood the lingo, he understood the industry, he understood what sizes those bottles come in. So he utilized his professional experience in an industry that he knows something about, and his first contract was a 5-year contract.
Yep.
It does
Your
make it a
past
lot easier.
resume is your
Hmm.
also your past experience. What's in your resume?
Yes.
Prior, who were you?
And as long as you're being clear about it, right? So, on and I will also draw everyone's attention to the course that I updated on Covology, because I reviewed several examples of different ways that companies have articulated their experience, whether it was professional, whether it was subcontracting, whether it was direct experience, maybe it was for a nonprofit, but the use case is relevant to this government agency. There are several examples there. So I'll be sure to put the link in the description of the course, and I'll also, or I'm sorry, of this live, and I'll also drop it in the comments. So if you want sort of the screen
Oh,
share
make sure
situation,
you
the
add
visuals.
make sure you add your link to for your capability statements in case people
Oh,
just want
yes.
to download one and edit it and move on. But I don't know if any of you know, but Ashley has a good bunch of capability statements you can download and edit in Canva, which are really, really, really nice. Help you and save some time. And they're compliant and they're really good.
And even if you see one, I had a lot of clients come to the store and they were like, oh, I really like this format, but I'd rather this picture be on that format. They are totally editable. So it doesn't really matter what the title says. If you like the design itself, get the design and then just switch out the imagery to be relevant to your business.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I completely forgot about the store. Also pop the capability statement course here, because that will very much help you articulate your content to the government. The templates are just that. They're pretty much the design. You'll still have to fill that up with all the relevant factors about your business. So we'll
Mhm.
drop that in here as well. And I see that we have some attendees watching, but you guys are awfully quiet tonight. Any questions? Is anybody in the middle of their capability statement and maybe want to clarify anything?
I think also we have the capability statements. What was the other thing? Oh, the contact information. I've seen people put in the capability statement, their contact information very small in a little corner. I feel like that has to be big. It has to be seen.
I mean,
How do you feel
it
about the
has to be
UEIs and
the
everything?
what?
The getting your UEI in there in your cage code.
UEI and cage code is a must. What I will encourage everybody to omit
Mhm.
is the EIN. And honestly, think about your EIN like your social security number. If someone has enough information that they can find about you available online and your EIN, they can take out lines of credit in your business name. So I say leave that off. It will be asked of you when it's needed. So if somebody needs to, look at your records or financials or whatnot, it needs you to fill out an I-9 or W-9 rather, that will be required of you. But do not just print that publicly, put it on your website or anything like that. Just protect yourselves for sure.
And last but not least, I have one last question that one of my viewers had mentioned. What happens if your address is home address? How should
Good
you
point.
kind of, put that up there? Or should
Well, you
you?
can't register in SAM with a virtual address, and the government doesn't give a hoot about your PO box. So I have had some who were just really not comfortable with it put their city and state. Others are fine with putting it on there. And here's the thing: is nobody's we understand, right? I have a home office. You have a home office. There are major contractors that started in their garage. you don't necessarily it's less of a concern if you're, I mean, I've been registered in SAM for years. The worst thing that happens is I get a spam postcard telling me my registration is going to expire. Like
Like six of them.
so that's totally fine. I put your home address, you could put your city and state to say headquartered in, Sumter, South Carolina or whatever. Christopher asked, so the words capability statement need to be on there. I would say omit it. You might not have been with us, Christopher, but we did harp on this a little bit. I got on my soapbox earlier in the call. And the point that I made was your government buyers have made it through degrees and all the way through Defense Acquisition University to get to a rank of 1102. They know what the document is. So leave it out. Instead, use that real estate for something better, something that communicates value. And
Mhm.
Cody says, soaking in the knowledge, completed everything except the capability statement. So timing was perfect. I'm so glad to hear that. It has been quite a bit of chatter this week, and especially since we did that course. So feel free to hop in the groups and ask any questions that you might have as you progress through that. And that course will really be helpful in kind of going through how to communicate your value. I did also give a little lesson, sort of a shortened lesson on value mapping, which is a strategy I learned from Joshua Frank at RSM Federal. How do you quantify your experience in metrics? Um, to give the appearance that you're a little more well developed than you are. And sometimes when you lay those projects out and you really go through the numbers, you kind of impress yourself
Mhm.
on all that you've done. So highly recommend that course. And if anyone needs help with a professional design, I mean, we are federal sales strategists at Dual Dev. So, we can certainly help you with an aesthetic design that communicates value to your government buyers. We might have to spend an hour or two hashing through some of your experience to get it right. But don't sit too long and struggle. Go to our website, reach out if you need help. So we did run a little bit over time today, but thank you all for joining us. I appreciate your comments. Please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. We are here 7 p.m. every Thursday. And on our website at govconhacks.com/podcast, at the very bottom, you'll find the link to submit your questions. So if you want to encourage and influence future sessions that we have and future topics, please, please, please fill out that form. Let us know what you're interested in so we can come here and answer your questions.
Oh yeah, I like
And
that.
thank you. Yeah, that's very good. And for anyone who might be listening that wants to be a guest, maybe you want a contract, you want to come and talk about your story, what your journey was like. Maybe you are a small business liaison and you want to come on and give a government's perspective. We welcome all of you. Please go to the same page, fill out the form, and we'll get you scheduled.
Bye,
Any
everybody.
any last thoughts, Natasha?
No, I'm really excited
Okay.
about our next
She's
session.
speechless.
It's such a good session. It was so good. Even I
Yes,
learned
yes,
something
it was.
today. So some of those questions for me. But it was very, very good. So I had a
Next
blast.
week, we're talking about contract vehicles.
Bye.
We're going to go over GWACs, IDIQs, federal supply schedules. What's that all mean and how can you get involved? So stay tuned. We will be back same time next week. Bye, everyone.